Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world. Today, April 25th, 2021. For those of you who are new, my name is Alan Clements, and I have been giving a series of talks for many years, more specifically from February 1st, at the onset of the military coup d'etat in Burma, a series of passionate sharings about the courage of the civil disobedience movement in that country to confront evil, the evil military known by the acronym MASAC, the former general and the former armed forces, Ming Online, and the State Administration Council. That acronym is best understood to understand an epic evil incarnation of the Taliban in Afghanistan, an epic evil incarnation of Al-Qaeda in Myanmar, an epic evil incarnation of the Khmer Rouge that we once saw under Pol Pot in Cambodia. And Dr. Sasa, the escaped representative of the National Unity Party, the legitimate government of Burma, as the elected leaders are imprisoned, detained, killed, or tortured, he has impassionedly brought to the United Nations Security Council, to the free countries of the world, to the people of the world, the deep desire of the people of Burma to be supported through the 2005 United Nations resolution to support what's known as the right to protect people who are undergoing crimes against humanity, genocide, ethnic cleansing, which is occurring at this very moment in Burma. I've been giving a series of talks to illuminate both the courage from the outside and to speak of the wisdom of free nations and leaders to immediately intervene in that country's horror. Right now, the terrorist leader, Ming Online, is in Jakarta meeting with the other leaders of the ASEAN countries. A despicable circumstance where there is nothing other than the overt collusion with evil by other so-called leaders to support a Pol Pot figure in Myanmar simply because he was a former general and has commanded his terrorist organization to annihilate the civil disobedience movement, to annihilate democracy, to annihilate human rights, to torture and to assassinate, and to do everything humanly possible that an evil incarnation desires to do, to subjugate, to dominate, to terrorize a nation of free people at this very moment. I've expanded without negating my deep regard, my deep love, my deep passion to the people of Myanmar, my Dhamma family, based upon a series of talks on my newly released first literary fiction called Extinction X-Rated. A number of people have acquired it from various online sources worldwide. It's an autofictional dark satire about good and evil. And it's a radical, deep dive, and I'd like to speak a little bit about that today. I had previously thought of another subject, but for one reason or another, in the last couple of minutes before I sat down, I abandoned that. And today's topic is shedding skins and strengthening roots. And if I may just do what I normally do, may I encourage you, should you need encouragement, to chill, hang, engage with me in your own way, watch your own mind, give me your best heart and love. It's a challenging time for all of us, and I am finding remarkable empowerment on a biological, Dhammic heart level by these spontaneous sharings in the morning, where I allow myself for the 5 hours from the time I get up to this time to just serendipity across this landscape of inner and deeper and outer and further, with understanding what's at that topical, deeper, subconscious, heartfelt level of truth today. I want to be in fidelity with my best, my finest, my most open. And so spontaneous presence is the least confining way to share my interior with myself and with you. And thank you for participating and overhearing and interacting with me, discovering me. Shedding skins and strengthening roots. I was speaking with my very beloved dear friend last night on FaceTime, Dr. Janine Davies in Vancouver, a former long-term partner, my daughter's godmother. Many of you know, you've met with her digitally recently. Many of you know her personally. She's a remarkable human mind and heart. Deep, deep, deep Dhamma ally, soul sister at the core level. Talented, Dhamma-oriented, hypersensitive relational psychotherapist. If you're looking for intimate guidance across the terrain of complexity, seek her out online and see her wisdom. I've been blessed with a number of very intimate friends. She's as good as they get. And we were talking last night, and I was saying that I was reading, which I often do, books by my preceptor, the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw of Burma. Of all books on the planet that I cherish, read, study, feel, are his books. He's just a prolific human mind. And I was just super blessed to be ordained by him, be given the bhikkhu name Agasara, one dedicated to the development of consciousness. Thank you, sir. And initially under his meditative guidance, and a prolific mind, a prolific writer. I was there when he passed away suddenly as he was typing back in '82. And it was a very privileged time to be in the monastery, to see the extraordinary outpouring of respect and compassion and love for both this Dhamma pioneer and Dhamma giant. His books are the Dhamma Bible of my heart. And I was reading a section of this one book that I've been reading called the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, a very famous discourse attributed to the Buddha about this very complex yet provocative insight attributed to the Buddha called anatta, the emptiness of a permanent entity anywhere. The emptiness of a permanent entity anywhere, inside, outside, whether it be an eternal God figure, whether it be an eternal intelligence, whether it be a fixed idea of entity inside, even a translucent, nuministic God centrality to one's own biological, etymological, spiritual complexity. No soul. The absence of permanent subjectivity to a changing phenomenology of physical sensations and mental sensations and the phenomena of color and sound and taste and smell and thought and images at the sense doors, and even the perception of outside. There's no fixed centrality, and it's a very radical thought to, and I know many of you have spent a considerable amount of time in your life meditating and reflecting, discussing, reading about the concept of anatta. And this discourse attributed to the Buddha is quite amazing. It's a very long book, 370 pages. So I was reading a section, and it was an impassioned, very out-of-the-box type of dialogue between the Buddha and a gentleman who was a prince who had a very strident opinion about the nature of consciousness. It was very contrary to the Buddha's experience of anatta. And it was a dialogue about the wisdom or the folly of the anatta concept versus the opposite, which is the atta concept. This comes back to the topic today of shedding skins and strengthening roots. And beyond the content of the section of the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, the overarching issue for me was the beauty, the power, the intimacy, the wisdom, the love, the compassion, the playfulness, the sensitivity, the durability of a long-term intimate Dhamma alliance, renegade, maverick, edge player, honest, truth-seeking relationship. And those are very rare. It comes under the heading of Sangha. And it comes back to me to an overarching issue that is often neglected, I find, in dialogues that I hear, in books that I hear, that I read, and in questions that have come up to me when I was more public in groups and talks and retreats, is how so much of the awakening, the enlightening experience attributed to these teachings some 2,600 years ago in these remarkable texts. This is just one of many, many, many discourses attributed to the Buddha. Many of them are just deeply interactive, and they're so radically inspired by honesty, and at times this particular story was a ferocious, sword-cutting commitment to truth, and the passion of that engagement of I and other together in this cosmic existential game dance to bring to light the most important evolution of our interior, which means, as I was reading last night, noticing how this prince was shedding skins, psychic skins, psychological skins, belief systems like skins that serve to define this very impossible to locate identity, a fixed identity. And so it's like peeling back, distorting lenses, called ditti in the Pali word, wrong view, distorting lenses, ditti, like shedding skins, analogously here of shedding lenses, shedding distortions, polishing glasses, refining perception, right? And the Buddha was bringing up that really, Prince, that beingness, human beingness is none other and everything, like an earth made up of rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara, and vijnana. These 5 aggregates of beingness. And out of this earth body of rupa, physicality, this dynamic, anicca-driven, impermanent ecosystem of organs and blood and arteries and flesh that incessantly, obviously, stating the obvious, but so easy to overlook, incessantly in interrelated causal, impermanent non-centrality. It's like the earth isn't the center of the universe. It's not permanent. It's an ecosystem of earth and fluids and fire and oxygen, materiality, rupa, the basis of being. And may I invite you, because I was listening last night to myself speak and read how everything that was being shared, as I could interpret it from the Buddha to the Prince, was this implicit dedication, a shared dedication to the actualization, if you will, of insight and wisdom. I want to know that which is truly true. I want to shed false attire. I want to overcome limiting skins. We're on the journey of awakening. We're on the journey of Dhamma. We're on the journey of enlightenment. We're on the journey of our yoga adventure to shed artificialities, to shed limiting narratives, to discern contraband and have the skill to protect from propaganda and incursions unwanted, like secondhand etymological smoke. I don't want to be in the room or in the house, in the restaurant, in life with the cigarette any more than I want to be in life with the contraband of delusion. But yet, we can't always say no smoking. We can't just simply say, to state the obvious, no genocide, no incursions upon my flesh or my vagina or my body, unless there's intimate permission and agreement all along the way. It doesn't come so easily. So we must, champion in each other this journey of shedding skins and strengthening roots, and to develop a greater intensity of courage, conviction, and wisdom on how to embody our earth, rupa, the first of these 5 aggregates. Everything grows out of that. The trees, the flowers, the animals, the earth, our rupa. Vedana, sensation based upon pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral sensations. Everything seems to have an immediate impact. You taste something and it tastes pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. You hear a sound and it sounds beautiful or unpleasant, annoying or neutral. You smell something and it smells attractive, and we like that and we want more of it, or it makes you happy and glad, or it's unpleasant, it's foul, even, my goodness, coming across excrement, and you go, oh, we cringe. But how natural in this earth field we must encounter the unpleasant, and we desire the pleasant, and so often it's just neutral and even seen as boring. And here the prince and the Buddha in the Anatalakkhana Sutta, talking to my friend last night, reading the story, and appreciating the relational nature of shared space and what we do with each other to help support the opening of the heart, the existential dignity of stature, the shedding of skins. May I invite you to invite me, to invite you, to invite our friends. What are the skins that we identify? We go to our closet, we go to our room, we go to the place where we hang our attire every day, and we unknowingly, unconsciously, or sometimes deliberately choose the color, the sweater, the size, the tights, the shoes, the hat, the jewelry, the makeup, the earrings, the lipstick, the rings, the bracelets, the pearls, the rubies, the diamonds. We anoint, we live in the aesthetic of form, and here the shedding of skin and the strengthening of roots to more intelligently live in the Dhamma aesthetic. That's what I'm trying to get to, the chosen Dhamma aesthetic of going to dress every day. What will we do? Bhavana, the beautification of interiority. That's a very beautiful exchange between the Buddha and this prince. It was really dedicated to bhavana, the beautification of interiority. And that to me is a very, when we talk about shedding skins, or at least as I mean it today, it's not to, stand naked in front of the goddess of all time or the Buddha that we hope to meet inside and out, or even just being true. It's not to stand in naked authenticity alone. Yes, romantic and poetic as that is, but it's choosing for me at least, I can't say for you, it's choosing and knowing my own unique spiritual Dhamma aesthetics. The beautification of mind isn't just the emptiness of self or the insight into anatta. The Buddha was talking with the prince on how to authenticate wisely the views of your own earth, to look out through the lens of your own wisdom telescope and microscope and two eyes, and see rightly, Prince. See reality rightly, Prince. See the truth of the cosmos and your place in it and my place in it rightly, Prince. Shed your wrong views. This is what I hear. Shed your distorting lenses. Allow that which you have become familiar with and conditioned by to know that it's the more comfortable attire to wear, but yet it's just no longer you. Call it the Dhamma makeover, right? Shed, my friend Prince. See reality rightly. See the emptiness of self-fixation. And he's telling the prince, if you could control rupa, then I would say, yes, you're right, there is a self. But we cannot, you cannot. Can you? Can you control what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you do, what you feel? Can you choose the Vedana of your choice? Can you say no more unpleasant Vedana ever in my life? If you could do that, my friend Prince, I would say your view of atta, self, is true, but it is anatta, is it not? Because why, Prince? Sir, I can't control my Vedana. I can't control my rupa. Therefore, is it atta or anatta? It is anatta, sir, empty of self-fixation, empty of permanent entity. It's just so breathtaking. If I were to teach atta, would it be wise or delusional? It would be delusional, sir. So too with your view, Prince. Does it lead towards freedom or incarceration? Atta leads towards slavery, sir. Anatta leads towards liberation. Indeed, Prince. Cultivate the wisdom of anatta and anicca and dukkha through the phenomenology of all of our senses and feel it within the earth sphere of our own interconnected biological presence all the time. Can you control, Prince, how long you will live? Who you will encounter alone? Can you tell yourself, Prince, I dare not want to encounter the evil totalitarians? No. Is it atta or is it atta or anatta? Sir, it is empty of self. Therefore, it leads to liberation. Does it not, Prince? It does, sir. And I find that shedding of skins are more poetic for me and the strengthening of Dhamma roots. To be the most cherished vocation today, the Dhamma cure, and even using the word cure is not accurate. It's as if there's an ailment that can be fixed. Is that atta or anatta? Can you tell yourself, Prince, I refuse to be ill or diseased or grow old? Is that something you can do, Prince? No, sir, I cannot. Is it atta or anatta? Sir, it is empty of self. Why is that true, Prince? Because I cannot control my destiny by saying, I wish not to die. I wish not to grow old. I wish not to have disease. I wish not to encounter the unpleasant. I wish only to encounter that which is good, true, and beautiful. Therefore, is that delusional or is that wise? Is that liberating or is that incarcerating? O Buddha, it is liberating and wise. Rightly so, Prince. Amend your views. Reminds me of doctor visits, how frank they are. Amend your views, Prince, and commence upon a journey of shedding skins and strengthening roots. And the Prince commences upon that process. It's quite beautiful. Anyway, second part of the talk. I was reflecting before I sat down. It was about 14 years ago that I was in a very challenged moment. And there are medium-sized challenges, there are little challenges, there are large challenges, and there are epic challenges, all relative to the individual and how we interpret challenge. Again, commencing further into this theme of shedding skins, strengthening roots, authenticating core language of identity while there's time within the earth-based beingness of rupa. I'm embodied, and within that there's Vedana. There is sanya, perception. Just knowing that perception exists as a phenomenology within consciousness, it perceives name and form and time, duration, dexterity, complexity. It proliferates upon color and sound and taste and sensation, smells and interiority. It looks upon a sunset and imagines it to be a god, a goddess, a poetry, a prophet, a premonition, an insight. It has duration, color, texture, and fundamental to its very nature, the photonic play of light upon these invisible elements that give rise to the idea of a sunset and color and form and clouds and space and time and viewer and object. Sanya, perception. All of what I just discussed comes under the heading in the Pali Buddhist Abhidhamma Buddhist psychology of sanya, perception. But to see, I am proliferating upon the phenomenology of present time presence. I am investing in a particular type of identity, a skin, a behavior, an interpretation. Is it true, O Prince, or is it deluded? Is it impermanent, Prince, or is it fixed from a self-reference? And so Sanya is seen in reference in the Anatta-Lakkhana Sutta to anatta, and how anatta is the understanding also of anicca and dukkha, and how through dukkha and anicca one understands emptiness. Through rupa, the earth body, vedana, pleasant, unpleasant, feeling, neutrality, and then this third component, sanya. And I'll come back to the final two as I proceed with this last second story of 14 years ago. I was in a complex phase of shedding skins and strengthening roots. I very rarely tell this because it's, despite being very public and speaking a lot, is a very private side of my life. But this story was quite powerful and poignant and transformational. I was living in a small studio that was given to me by a stranger just out of the blue. I met him in an alley. I was throwing out trash, and he offered, under my circumstances, to live in this studio. He had read a book that I had written, and he was quite moved and said he wanted to bequeath me with a generous gift, knowing that I needed a place to live. And it had its complexities. It had almost no heat, had no kitchen, but it was beautifully painted. It was like an artist's studio. And I felt really grateful to have this. But it was cold, and I had to eat out. I had almost no money at the time. I became very friendly with Johnny, who made pizzas up the street. And I was in a heavily involved pharmaceutical phase of my life to moderate the complexities of my life and mind. I won't go down the list of what they were. And I decided to go visit a friend and her daughter, Catherine Durham, also a beloved, dear yogi, Dhamma, ally of the heart and soul, like Janine, in Hawaii. And I went there dead of winter, and I was really, really, really in need of shedding skins and strengthening roots, but not having much insight into how. I really wasn't aware of the last two of the 5 aggregates talked about in the Anatta-Lakkhana Sutta, known as Sankhara and Vijnana. Sankhara are mind states in consortium, the ever-present interrelatedness of these invisible yet so discernible felt realities of consciousness. The 5th, vijnana, consciousness and the energetic colors or energy patterns that co-arise within consciousness, called sankharas. And in other words, I had very little mindful awareness of my own mind patterns at that time. I was in identity folds, living out through skins that were fundamentally detrimental to my earth-based rupa, my heart, my body, yet not really attuned to the Vedana, the sensation of complexity and contraction, how we can live and not know how we feel. Just look at the amount of people that struggle with what they put into their bodies and have very little relationship to the sensations as a result of those causal behaviors. And they translate often, and I know myself, I've done that, translate the sensations wrongly and wear the pain as if it's the identity of who I am and protect it through anger and shame and denigrating ways that we use substances, food, chemicals, behaviors, skins, shedding skins, and how to strengthen roots here. And my friend, Catherine, who's remarkably sensitive, remarkably caring, deeply loving of me, and of course vice versa, said, "You look really, really bad." A little bit like the Buddha in the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, talking to the prince. Your views are off. What you're doing with your mind, Prince, you may think it's good for you, but it's denigrating to you and those near you. And Catherine, in her own way, was saying the same about whatever you're doing, it's not wearing well in your body and in your mind. It's a beautiful comment. And those are rare. Those are rare people in our lives who will help us in this Buddha-Prince dynamic. True Sangha members, samsaric Sangha members, who live in the radiance and the fidelity of a truthful relationship with you that's done and tempered, of course, with remarkable poise and caring and compassion and timing and tone and skillfulness. And sometimes, though, it requires a little bit more directness, like the Buddha with the Prince and Catherine with me. And how many of us have been in those relationships where truth is the best expression of love? It may not come easily to the recipient, but what a gift it is. And I took a walk on the beach and reflected, and went back to my room in her house and looked at all the various prescription drugs that I was taking, that I had become so habituated. Have you ever been there? Habituated? Just naturally taking your so-called pseudo-antidepressants, your calming pharmaceuticals in increasing doses, your opposite effect of kind of increasing cognitive clarity pharmaceuticals that enhance the dulling calmness of the downers. The pharmaceutical manipulation of body and consciousness and the detriment that often has on mind and body, on the rupa, the vedana, the sanya, the sankhara, the vijnana. My earth was being polluted, and I was unaware of it. So the next day, she outlined an offering of how to intervene. You ever been in that time in your life where you need intervention? Sometimes you unexpectedly go somewhere based on this and you find out or discover something physical and they inform you that you need intervention. The Buddha with the prince, it was an intervention. I mean, there's something very beautiful about that in the shedding of skins and the strengthening of roots. A lot of people who have success and wealth, I dare say, are surrounded often by sycophants, the cult of collusion to no longer engage in anything meaningful with you that might be Buddha to Prince, Catherine to Alan. And how many of us in our lives seek wise counsel through therapists, counselors, psychiatrists, people talented with the incisive dialogue of the heart. So collusion here is antithetical to the shedding of skins and the strengthening of roots. And I was appreciating last night with Janine just the power of this dialogue with the Buddha and with the prince, and then just the Dhammic rootedness in the rapport in reading this and talking with Janine about the Dhamma, about something so powerful as this Anatta Lakkhana Sutta. Oh Prince, does it lead to your freedom or to your denigration to hold the view of atta or self-reference, or anatta, the emptiness of a fixed permanent entity inside or outside? Sir, it is for my betterment and for my liberation that I understand the wisdom of anatta, anicca, and dukkha. And so I'm kind of living in the radiance of this right now with you as I come to the close. And so I began with Catherine for that next month or two, a gradual daily reorientation to entering my rupa, my earth. I had abandoned my earth. There's never going to be a cure for your rupa, Alan. There's never going to be a cure for your lungs, your kidneys, your heart. You are anicca, you are anatta, you are dukkha. And in that evanescent, photonic, neutronic, rupa dance of consciousness and form and perception and sankharas and the Vedana, there is the luminosity of a mindfulness awakened Dhamma. Nurture your mind and body. Strengthen your roots. Shed skins, narratives, predilections, propensities, conditions, habits. Intervene. Last night's sutta, the prince came to the Buddha based upon someone intervening in his life. Prince, you should talk to this young man known as Buddha, a man who lives in what he calls an awakened state, and isn't keen on the need to shed skins or strengthen roots. There's this awakened liberation from fear, greed, and delusion in him. Impossible, impossible. He has an aberrant belief to mine. It's evil, the prince said. I've heard about this man. He claims this anatta truth, and it's evil. I couldn't even believe I was reading this by Mahasi Sayadaw. How many beautiful things in life are denigrated, right? Right now in Burma, all the courage of these boys and girls and men and women. I think of my friend Aung San Suu Kyi and U Win Taint and so many others, alone in these gulags. This girl who I knew of, I never met her, who was just a very well-known person in Burma who's just been viciously tortured. And a young woman, a teenager, was released who was in her cell. And I read it this morning. It's disbelief. And I'm talking about shedding skins and strengthening roots and talking about my friends and our relatedness of Dhamma and transformation, intervention. God, I wish there would be someone who would intervene with Masak in Burma. Where are you, UN? Where are you, America, Canada, Australia? Where are you? Where are you? Where is your Buddha? Passion, courage to support the delusion of this evil empire in Burma. It just makes me choke. And so I began yoga. I've been yoga for years, but I neglected it for years. Not a word about the pharmaceuticals. They're so sacred, man. Do not tamper with my chosen vehicles for coping. Don't dare use the word addiction. My chosen vehicles for coping wisely with the right amount, doing it because I am aware that I'm doing it. Don't tell me it's wrong. Don't tell me a cigarette's wrong. Don't tell me wine's wrong. Don't tell me it's wrong. You ever been in those spaces in yourself? Very difficult to have a relationship rooted in the Buddha and the Prince and my allies in my life, rooted in Satya, the truth of being, and then providing support and clarity, nuance of extracting oneself from these deluded, compromising narratives, these old, yucky skins that just no longer need. They denigrate. Throw all those clothes away. Give them away. Throw them away. Bury them. Burn them. Consecrate your purity. Have a ceremony, a rebirth, right? I don't know about you, but I want to come to the close here. There's never been a more epic moment of the meaning of rebirth right now. The Dhamma cure. The increasing non-heroic breathing into, rising up into the existential dignity, the stature of my Prince talking to the Buddha, shedding my wrong views, my latent compromising behaviors. Where is now the ascent to the finest and the best expression of my life? 14 years ago, I went back to Vancouver in my studio in the dead of winter and did the unthinkable. Done it before then, and I've done it after then. Took all of those pharmaceutical magic mind pellets and just flushed them in the toilet. Through the serendipity of grace, I met a couple of other beautiful people. I'm speaking with them tomorrow, actually. I'm making a real deliberate point of those angels in my life, those saints in my life, those breathtaking samsaric Sangha members, to connect right now. Always been fairly good about that, but it's never been so important to both say hello and I love you, I hear you, I'm in gratitude to you. But they invited me into their home and got me out of that place. And I got into twice a day yoga right up the street. And I changed my diet. And I started to walk again. And Janine gave me a bicycle. I started to ride a bicycle. I got back into my rupa. I got back into a more mindful present with my Vedana and my Sanya, my Sankara, my Vijnana. I began to beautify, bhavanize beingness. I began to understand how to put my heart in the soil, not my drugs, not my waste. It was a beautiful moment. This happened again some years past. It happened 2.5 years ago with my beloved friends, Paul and Liz in Byron Bay. And for 2.5 years since that time, there's been a resurrection. Never have been better. And yet, okay, now yet again, based on the unforeseen circumstances that we're all in this together, right? Burma cracked my heart. Feeling the cruelty of the unconsciousness of the world has cracked my heart. Feeling into the crazy, bewildered, sociopathic nature of this aberrant universe with these aberrant atoms called beingness, rooted in this diabolical DNA that gives rise to Hitlers and Mossacks and Pol Pots and idiot, sicko theologians and priests and just killers of profit, arms merchants, sex traffickers, human traffickers, the industry of global control, the nuclear-armed, genocidal dictator of China in the Financial Times talking about the need for a new world order. Where is the intervention in that narrative, right? It's one thing to talk about my own personal being, my own shedding of my own skins, and my strengthening of my own roots. But okay, we've got our own rupa here, but we're embedded in a bigger rupa. We're embedded in a collective consciousness, a collective expression of sankharas, a collective sanya set of perceptions, a collective vedana, a collective sense of rupa. And here we sit as individuals trying to understand our own personal lives within our few family and tribe. And then who dares to venture out into the larger frontiers of activism, existential activism, and strengthening the bhavana in the face of the epic complexities of politics and the potential that we're all dealing with today of not just the inevitability of climate collapse and all the things of disruption on manufacturing and food, electricity, but we're in a weird cognitive pharmaceutical drug called, can you taste it? Can you hear it? Can you smell it? Can you feel it? This is not conspiratorial. Totalitarianism is in the air. We're seeing a radical evil expression of it in the country of Myanmar right now. 1933, Germany, 1936, Germany, 1938, Germany. You could smell it. I read in the books, I watch the films. You could smell the rise of totalitarianism and ideology. But it took a very sensitive yogi, meditator, right? To go, okay, shed and strengthen the roots of radical, courageous, mindful, warrior-like, razor-sharp intelligence. We got to get into, I'll close here, we've got to get into real, as I did 14 years ago, we got to get into real psychological, existential shape. For me, I'm determined more than ever to get into Dhamma shape. That ain't passive peace. That's radical, anger-infused compassion with actions of chill, of course. Deep, 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 deep chill. It's coming. I made a big set of conditions this morning of the next 3 months of what I want to see for myself. And right in the middle of that list was joy, love, non-leather beneath my feet, music, yoga, just as I did 14 years ago with Catherine in Hawaii. I want a new next dimension of health, vitality, psychic, physical, existential, spiritual, Dhammic. I want nothing to do through participation, consciously or unconsciously, with dissonance. I don't want it. I am not going to communicate with it. I am not going to participate through text. I am not going to collude with that which is not right. And that's part of the healing right now, to use a very limited term. But this next phase of strengthening roots and shedding skins, I would call it the rat is on. That's another way of looking at the Dharma cure. The rat is on. And I'm making a playlist of behaviors, of patterns, of just yogic asanas, the asana of vijnana. What is the asana of bhavana, the beautification of mind within consciousness? What is the asana of radical, boundaried authenticity and participation in the fidelity of joy? And how to really examine for myself here, I don't want to participate in anything denigrating. I don't want to close my eyes to it. But I'm inviting those people, old family, new friends, unknown friends, digital acquaintances across the space, an invitation for a collective in our shared little samsaric sangha of an intervention to take it higher, embody the Dhamma cure, and let's collectively create an album called our Radical Dhamma Rad to participate here in these next minutes, next months. I don't want to go further than that. And I pray a healing wisdom, as with the prince and the Buddha in the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta. That prince, by the end of that story, he took the satipatthana, he took the mindfulness, the wisdom, the bhavana, and rose said, I want to know the cure. I want to know the practice. And that's where I'm going to root. That's where I'm rooting. I'm encouraging people. Root in that which really does strengthen the roots and intrinsically sheds the skins. So, thank you for being a part of today's sharing. Thank you for being in my life. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you.